Good evening and welcome to the June 6, 2023 meeting of the Barrington Planning Board. First, it's a call to order with a roll call, starting with Edie.
Nat, present.
Happy Yellow present.
Jesse are present, Driscoll present. Also with us tonight, we have the town planner, Lisa Price, John Huckins, zoning administrator, and Barbara Irvine, a land use and planning administrative assistant. First item is the review and approval of the minutes from May 16th, 2023. Any comments or corrections?
I wasn't here for the meeting, but when I was trying to read the minutes on lines like 156, that paragraph, it was just difficult to read. I think the translation of that
56.
that paragraph,
157.
156.
Thank you.
It just might bear just some basic editing on that one. It was a little difficult for me to follow.
It's actually kind of a complicated issue because there's so many moving parts to it. That's probably why it was hard to follow. Not so much
Okay.
what was written, but all the issues that went along because of what happened.
Yes.
Okay.
We can probably do like a file check or something.
I don't think the content on it said, yeah.
Okay.
Anything else?
Just
Motion to
punctuation items.
meetings as written. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, Bob, Jesse.
Who was the first one?
You. Roll call.
Nat, bye.
I wasn't here, so I'll just pass on them.
Okay.
Jesse, you're on.
Just go on. Jennifer, please. Wonderful.
Meeting board and audience, just want to let you know that the housing chapter subcommittee has been formed. We have one citizen that has responded, and then we have staff and the two boards, Michelle and Joyce as the members, and then an additional select board person, Tracy Harkov. So at the June 20th meeting, that's when the application for the citizen will be accepted or discussed. There will be a kickoff meeting on Monday, June 26th, from 2 to 5 p.m. And I'll send that email out to all the steering committee members on that later this week. And just to note, the New Hampshire Municipal Association posting the local official workshops, the date was moved. They had a scheduling conflict, so if you still wanted to attend, it's online or virtual on June 29th, 2023. And I believe that you can usually go back to it on my website to take a look at it as well. That's really all the updates I have, unless there's any questions from the board.
Doesn't look like it. Next item is the master plan presentation, Stratford Regional Planning Council.
So I'd like to introduce this evening the Stratford Regional Planning Council.
The transportation planner with Stratford Regional Planning, and we've been working for just about exactly a year, on the transportation and future land use chapters. Quick recap of the process, starting in June of 22, we had a kickoff meeting with the steering committee members. In the fall, we had a townwide survey, and that rounded up with a community forum where people came in person, and did a lot of number of exercises. April 23, we had some review of the outreach results and the initial plan development with the steering committee members. And they reviewed a final draft and made comments before it was submitted today, or yes, about today, in May. Quick survey, summary of the survey, and we have number of different types of questions, general questions on transportation, some kind of strategy rating questions around community development items, a mapping exercise where people could drop pins and make comments specific to the geography around Barrington, and then some other demographic questions. Really successful timing with that, where we saw big jumps in participation in the survey with the open house, the election being the biggest one, and then the tax bills. So that was kind of a neat lessons learned where we could watch the participation jump after each successive advertisement battle. We got a really good range of people as far as their age. You can say they're from 35 up through 65. Pretty nice range, and I think we had a couple of 16 or under that submitted probably their parents' bidding. And 614 people total locally participated in that survey. The forum was in person, and we started with an overall group discussion with a number of small group exercises where people rotated around the room and imagined what New Hampshire 9 and 125 intersection could look like in the future, prioritizing investments in infrastructure and transportation, doing a land use sketch that was led by Blair, and then a visual preference survey where people looked at different ways that buildings and things could be presented and designed in the downtown area of the future town center. Quick couple of things, a little bit on the transportation chapter. This process involved some updates to the vision, specific to the land use and transportation sections. Some minor updates on the language around public transportation, the connectedness of the trails and recreation access points around the community. I recommended language about separating people outside of cars, pedestrians and cyclists from vehicular traffic wherever possible. And I also recommended removing the language about expansion of road shoulders. And I'll go into that in a minute. The table in the vision chapter of the master plan was updated with all the goals and recommendations from this project. A few of the updates in the chapter on the data side, just making sure the road network and traffic data were up to date. We added bicycle activity data from an app called Strava. It's a user-based, but it allows people to show when they took a commute, if they were riding their bike to work or some other errand, or if they were just riding for fun. So that's, we weren't able to do a detailed analysis of that, but for the future, we can dig into that for the town to look at specific routes. Looking at bridge conditions, local pavement condition, the plan includes a multi-year plan that the town developed with our staff very recently. We looked at employment commuting, where people were driving, whether they lived in town, where they were commuting to work, and also people who don't live in Barrington but commute to work within the community. Looked at crash data, thanks to the local police department for supplying some updated data. Oh, I lost my screen share. Stand by. Getting poor network quality. Let me try again. Drop me 1 minute. It's coming back. All right, let's circle back. Again, crash data, updating some of that information, and reviewing local ordinance and regulations related to transportation. So I already went over the outreach summaries. Those are included in the plan in more detail, or the chapter. I emphasized safety for all users on the road network. And identified some specific safety improvements or approaches to improving safety as a way to really support the rural character part in the vision, where roads that are safe for all users. The main idea is to slow vehicles where it's appropriate, like in a town center or in front of businesses, to kind of create that rural character, and I think that really supports that. So that was my main recommendation there. Talked a little bit about multimodal transportation and the idea of complete streets. That a street is, if it's designed for everyone, it's safer and really is beneficial for economic development. Looked at some recreation access issues, connecting trails and opportunities there. And the previous language, or the current language, was on public transportation in general. And I recommended a shift to the kind of on-demand services for people with disabilities or seniors who don't want to drive or can't drive for various reasons, but still need to get to grocery shopping and social events, medical appointments, focusing on that rather than the traditional fixed route like Coast. So that was my recommendation there. This is just a slide emphasizing, and sorry for the lag on the teams here, emphasizing the factor that speed plays in safety, where there's sort of an exponential factor, and the faster the car goes, the more likely a person is to be severely injured or killed. And so paying attention locally to where it's most appropriate to drastically slow speeds down and make places more walkable and attractive for businesses, for instance. This is just an example of what the survey results look like, where people could put pins. This is zoomed out, so in our results, you can kind of zoom in and look at comments people made. So traffic safety, you can see areas highlighted along 125, the big one being at the New Hampshire 9 and 125 intersection. Similar results for people identifying bicycle and pedestrian safety issues. Many people noted that they were didn't feel comfortable or safe walking along roads that they lived on, where they would like to do that, to walk to K-lifts or whatever, or just for fun. Some brief summaries of the goals: creating that safe and efficient local highway network. It sounds a bit ambitious, but 0 crashes that result in fatalities or serious injuries. That's sort of a federal and state and local focus that is emerging. Again, paying attention to transportation safety issues around the town center area, connecting destinations like local businesses, recreation, and the town hall, and then expanding that network of trails and recreation sites. Any questions on the transportation pieces before I hand it off to Blair? That was a quick summary. I can dive in later.
Do you want to open public comment, or do you want to open public comment at the
end.
end?
Think about Blair go.
Okay.
Okay.
Oh, 10 seconds left. Okay.
All right, so while the screen is catching up, my name is Blair Haney. I am a principal planner with Stratford Regional Planning Commission, and I was in charge of the future land use chapter, which is updating the 2017 chapter for this. We're there? Okay, good. So, much like Collins, they did a heavy process. To kick things off, you have about 31,000 total acres in Barrington. The 3 primary uses, land uses as of right now, is forest, residential, and wetlands. So you can see undeveloped lands, just from these two add up to about 72%. You add in a few other things, this town is close to 80%, basically untouched. But the largest disturbed uses is residential at 13%. And the other disturbed uses are not even close, like commercial, industrial, whatever it might be. Agriculture, at one time comprised 1,200 acres, in the town back in 1962. Today it's about 440 acres. So you're looking at 68% decrease. 355 acres, it's only 1%, and that's commercial development. As I said, it's barely there compared to the residential side. I said 80% is undisturbed. This 61% being remains buildable. That is, if you take out factors like steep slopes, wetlands, and already built upon lands and water bodies. No idea what that is. I don't know if I'm useless for that slide. So then, like the next major bullet, over 4,000 acres are built out as residential. That's the 13% I was talking about. And 95% of that is single family. So you only have about 5% that is not single family. And that impacts your housing plan that'll come up. You'll see that get teased out a lot more, but it is a major data point. I'd like to point out that conservation subdivisions, which is in your zoning ordinance, it's one of the innovative land use regulatory solutions. You can achieve town goals by protecting land, but allowing for development at the same time. And instead of 2005, when that regulatory solution was adopted, you protected over 660 acres, which is quite impressive. These are just a couple of 4 bullets of comments that have been that were made by residents, primarily from the town survey, and they were made multiple times. There were many other comments. I just sifted through and tried to find ones that jumped out. And then, so you had, I just thought this was funny. No more clear cutting and planting housing. But the point is talk about less development, right? And then this next one talked about your open space desires as a land use, acquiring large swaths, not focusing on acquiring large swaths of land, but thinking about connecting them. So you can move from place to place, both humans and wildlife. And then connecting that to neighborhoods, so you can kind of go from your house to these open spaces. And then in terms of the business development side, people are talking about not enough service-based businesses, which makes sense. You're primarily a veteran community. 95% of the development is single-family residential. It would make sense that you would see those comments, and also the implications on tax. And then finally, there was a comment that was looking more towards the sort of like pro-development on the housing side is accessory dwelling units as a way to without building more, having to build more infrastructure like town roads, town water, or septic, subsurface septic systems. Accessory dwelling units are a great way to get towards that end. So kind of an opposite from that first one, but it did appear several times. I'm only gonna, if you want to review this on your own, you're more than welcome to, but in the interest of time, I'm gonna highlight the ones that are literally highlighted. This one's called, this is the historical land use in Barrington. So looking at from 2005 to 2015, that's when the most recent data was available. I did point out at the top that your population has increased 9% since the last decennial survey. You're currently at 9,300 people as of 2020. The first highlight that I wanted to point out was the percent change in developed commercial. So while it isn't that high in terms of total land use, its increase in being used as a land use has gone up over 25%. So commercial development is happening, and that always trails behind lagging behind residential development. Because until the people are there, the businesses aren't going to show up, unless it's something like there's a large retail center that would just sort of go anywhere. Or a large employment center. And then I point to the forest, which, as I mentioned, was the largest land use. It decreased only about 6% in almost 10 years. As opposed compared to some of the other ones. So you would think that might be higher, but this might be something that people would be interested in. And then, like I said, there's other nuggets of good information in there for you, just to sort of see how historical land use in Barrington. This is the current land use. Again, looking at the highlighted ones, residential is over 4,000 acres. It makes up nearly 13%. Again, I point to agriculture. It's down to about 1.5%. And forest sitting at 60%. These are broken out into three major groupings: developed, meaning the land has some sort of physical presence on it, some kind of physical structure. Disturbed, meaning it's being used, but it might still be open space. Agriculture. Transitional is maybe a field or something that is now being just mowed or is just waiting to potentially be developed, or something that might be current use. Undisturbed is sort of left in its most native of state, right? Obviously, everything here has probably been cut at least one time. This is just showing just generally what is undisturbed at this point in time. And that, the thing I wanted to point out with this, undisturbed makes up almost 80% of your lands, between forest, water bodies, wetlands, and just other non-vegetated lands. It's about 80%. So while, people will talk about how development has happened and the pace at which it's happened, there's no substantial amount left. So you do want to think about this. You want to think about how you're going to use your land over the next 5 years, 10 years, because you do have, I gambled. Should have gone to the next slide.
Blair, while you're doing that. So 2015 is really kind of old data for Barrington because we've had so much development recently. Is there any way you can?
Unfortunately, no. This New Hampshire granite is a source where we get the information from, and that's the latest they have. They do it every so often, and that's
just what it is.
I do understand that, At least maybe you can extrapolate out a trend, but I didn't want to do that because I was trying to work off of something that I could point to and say, here's where we got the data from. I didn't want to just piece things out. But yeah, unfortunately, that is where we're at right now.
We couldn't have pulled that data from our planning department.
I mean, I imagine that's where they're getting it from, because what they do is they take an aerial and then they start drawing lines and they start to say, okay, this looks like farmland, this looks like wetlands. And as the aerial imagery gets better, they get more precise. So you start to see changes that way. But basically, it's a heavy lift. And then they do that statewide so that all of us can pull from that data, whether it's local planning department or a regional planning office. Yeah, so current land use. Okay, so this is just showing you as dots on a map where residential development has occurred. Probably won't catch us by surprise, but along major road corridors and by the water bodies.
Blair, that's not what we're seeing up here.
Oh,
I see
sorry.
it online, but.
It's lagging. Yeah,
Okay.
Anybody online, it's probably just the lag in here.
yeah,
Okay.
it's.
There it goes.
There it is. So the rest of the colors is your zoning map, and then we laid over top of that the residential development as black dots. The light yellow is your general residential, and that's going to be the areas north, south, and furthest west. We've got the center part, which is your neighborhood residential, and then it gets towards your mixed use development and commercial development towards the major routes of 125 and Route 9. But as you can see, the development is happening in obvious places along those corridors where the infrastructure exists, and then near the amenities, which is the water bodies. This is commercial development. As you can see, it's significantly different. The black dots are aligned with where your zoning is, your commercial development corridor of 125 and the sort of village center, town center area, and then a little bit heading out Route 9. But by and large, this is where commercial development has happened. I know there's a few speckled dots here and there, but this may be the reason why some people are asking for more services, because if they do want to get to somewhere or to get to something, and they're out in residential development is, they have to drive all the way through town, Route 9, to get to one of these commercial areas. And you know, that may be the perception as to why there's a desire for more services. So if there wanted to be neighborhood nodes, you could look into that, but this is where you're zoned for it, so this is where it's going to occur. So we did a future land use study. I'm going to show you a map in a second, but this is essentially what is remaining as buildable acres in each of your land use districts, regardless of the type of development, residential or commercial. It's just, here is what is able to be built upon. And so this gives you a sense of what each zoning district can handle at current zoning. Obviously, if you change something, it could change this. If you went to 3 acre zoning, or if you went to 10 acre zoning, or went to half acre zoning, this could change. But as of right now, you have about 13,000 buildable acres in the general residential, which is that larger swath of the community, which means about 60% of that district is buildable. I highlight the town center. You made some zoning changes there in recent years, which probably attracted some of the development that's occurred, but you're still looking at well over 80% of that district is still buildable. So when you're really trying to find places to bring that as service-based businesses or other job creators, the town center can only handle so much in terms of scale and size. It's going to always be the town center, but that's the area that has the most amount of buildable land. So in total, at the bottom, just under 19,000 acres of buildable land, which makes up about 60% of the community. There's essentially 3 colors on this map. This is showing, the purple is showing that 60%, 19,000 acres. The green is protected land, which makes up about 20 to 21% of your community that's permanently protected, either through easement or town ownership. But that's permanently conserved. And then the white, which is hard to see, but that's the built areas. That's the areas where either commercial or residential development has occurred. So as you can see, you're pretty thickly surrounded by the purple, and that's in all zoning districts. It's not really any particular one. If we go back to the numbers here, 60% in the general residential and the village district, 64%. Those are your lowest. So each one is about 2/3 still buildable. And so you do need to think about this. How do you want to grow as a community? Because if not, it's just going to spread, right? That's a lot of suburban communities spread when they start to get inundated with development. So just something to consider. This is the visualization of that. And then these are the goals that we established. Protect and preserve rural character. Oh, I'm sorry. I can't.
No, it's okay. People just started to come on and
I started to switch between slides. Yeah. We are one of, so these are the 5 goals that the group decided on: protect and preserve rural character, increase and improve trail access to open space, encourage shops and services in the town center and village zoning districts, and destination or specialized businesses in the regional commercial district. Create space for cultural events and town gathering, and encourage low density housing. These are all different types of land use. Land use doesn't necessarily mean built, right? So trails and open space is one. Social events and gatherings is another. There are more specific actions for each one of these goals in the plan, but these are the 4 high-level goals that we talked about on how to, on the future of land use. Let's see. Just left. Yes, we're not. Nope, okay. So I believe that's the end of our presentation. Yeah, there we go.
Our contact
Comments
information.
about the board? Open it to public input. Anybody would like to comment on this?
First, go to anybody in the room.
Anybody online?
We do have several people online, but if you're here or have a question in relation to the public comment period for master plan, chapter updates for land use and education chapters, you raise your hand. Sure, Chairman, I don't see anybody raising their hand for those subjects. However, if I may, oh, if there's somebody that's calling in that wants to, you gotta unmute yourself with star 6. I think.
There's 6, I think.
I was having difficulty understanding which matter you had just finished.
We are on, if you're, I don't know if you're following along on the, an agenda or not, but we're on agenda number 5 for the master plan presentation.
Okay. I'm calling in regarding the Kuchia Cooper matter. So I'm
Okay.
assuming that was not that matter.
Nope, that's
Okay.
later in the agenda.
Okay, thank you.
I'd just like to point out, I'm gonna share my screen real fast just to show the, people that are online in the audience, if they would like to, find these documents themselves, take a look. These are all posted on our website, so if you, I don't know if we shared it.
I see you sharing.
You
on my
can,
screen.
okay, because it's hard, sometimes on there, you can see it if you're like a virtual, just not up there, I don't know why. But if you go to our, home website under our boards and committees, and go down to our, actually, I think it's under land use department, excuse me, our land use department. And then on the left-hand side, there is a button for I'm sure I think of it. It is on the homepage to direct you. We created a page and I don't see it right now, but if you go on the homepage at the, you can see it right there. You can go to www.barrington.nh.gov/master-plan, and that'll bring up currently what the land use department is working with the planning board on. And then all the associated documents that were discussed today and the final drafts for the comment period.
Thank you. I think this is a really helpful planning
Thank you.
document. And personally, I'm really excited about how we would move forward with the interconnectivity of trails to have more biking and walking options in town.
Not to be self-serving, but we didn't have time in the contract to do a deep dive on the data, but Barrington is a member of SRPC, so we can look at the trails data, we can do additional traffic counts or pedestrian counts, we can look at crash data, do all of these things, and I can help pair you up with funding sources or that sort of thing. So we can help with the implementation side.
Great.
Yeah, and off-road, you have the Trails Committee that's part of your Conservation Commission, which hopefully can do. Everybody in the community needs to look at the implementation plans for the different chapters and try to find things that they can take forward. Sometimes having implementation committees is helpful, but yeah, I'm gonna help you out with it. And if people, let's just reiterate, if anybody wants to submit comments directly to us through the emails we have put up there, they're more than welcome to do that as well. It's a lot to digest in a short block of time. I understand that.
Or for some reason you didn't catch them, you can always just directly email to our department as well, and we can forward those along too.
And thanks to all the people that were on the committee and helped out. So great.
Thanks.
Thanks so much.
Item on the agenda is item number 6, discussion with the board for preliminary conceptual site. Eric Small, considering modifications to a prior approved plan for wildlife encounters.
Good evening. I was gonna say, am I at the podium or the table?
Wherever you
Yeah,
feel
good.
comfortable.
Guess I'll go podium. I stand for work. It's gotta be on camera somehow for everybody, right?
You know, I was like the same one that you said.
Hold on.
I can see if I can put it up virtually, that's because we have this PDF.
Sure.
Just give me a minute, but what are you doing?
All right, well, good evening. See, I think the formalities are introduce yourself and who you're here with. So some of us have met, some of us haven't, that are in the room, but my name is Derek Small. I guess formally on the agenda, I'm here representing DWS ×2 Holding, which is an LLC I'm a majority owner of, that is the legal property owner of the 2 parcels that comprise our 270 Beauty Hill current stewardship plot. I'm also the owner and founder of the Wildlife Encounters Ecology and Wellness Center. Most people just know us as Wildlife Encounters. And I have a few prepared remarks for those who may not be familiar with us, if you could bear with me. And then this is here as a consult. I have no formal site plan proposal or anything like that. Obviously, I have been through that process, late 2019 and unfortunately early 2020. And so my plan was the first planning board approval at the first virtual meeting after the shutdown. So I'm here to kind of give a status and ask some questions and answer some of yours. So I have lived at 270 Beauty Hill Road in Barrington since July of 2017. I acquired the property, the old Swain Farm from Peter Cook, who most of you probably recall. For the last 21 years of my life, I've primarily worked operating a USDA licensed animal and wildlife facility located in Rochester, New Hampshire, and working with animals that were dependent, non-releasable animals. They served as ambassadors to promote environmental and scientific literacy and conservation awareness. Since moving to Barrington, and especially since the pandemic, I am also in my 2nd year of serving as the vice chair of the Greater Barrington Chamber of Commerce. I just completed my 2nd year running the Peeper race and the Peeper committee and being the race director. And my company, Wildlife Encounters, is partnered with the Barrington Conservation Commission. Bless you. Thank you. And we are the sponsor and the funder of the Trail Trekker program. If you guys are familiar, for those either Barrington residents or people who come from outside of the community, if they complete walking all of the documented trails as a part of the Trails Committee, they get a little Trail Trekker badge. We paid for the badges, so we're the sponsor behind that, and active promoter of basically getting kids and families outdoors into natural spaces. And I guess one of our organizational slogans is turn a little screen time into green time, if you will. Okay, with me is my wife and partner Jackie. I met her and her children during the pandemic as she was transitioning from a career as a firefighter in Northwood to now today being a paramedic at the urgent care in Lee down the street. Additionally, she is a yoga instructor and just recently became a certified forest therapy practitioner. And she is a major driving force behind our organization's evolution into an ecology and wellness center. My prior approval and what you would see on any of the plans that may have been before you, we identified as an ecology center and farm school. So the pandemic, the pause that came from the pandemic, other influences in my life have actually allowed me to reassess how I wish to use the land, what we offer as services. And I just heard that Barrington is in need of service-based businesses. I was very, very happy to hear that. Today, we continue to do what we are most known for, and that which we have already mentioned, our community outreach educational services. We are currently midway through a record-breaking year in average past pre-pandemic years with our visits to schools, including all of the schools in the Barrington community, libraries, including the Barrington Library, rec departments, including the Barrington Rec Department, and many more. We would often do 1,000 to 1,100 presentations per year. across the New England states with our live ambassador animals. Today, we are projecting to be between 12 and 1,300 presentations in this calendar year. Additionally, we have commenced doing at our Rochester facility what we intended to do at our Barrington facility, which is invite people to come to us for the first time in our organization's history. We started hosting community private tours and small group events. That's how I met her. Right now, we actually have a church youth group at our facility in Rochester. One of my staff is doing a private tour at the moment. In 2022, we welcomed 101 such reservations and groups. People from the seacoast generally in this area, north and central New England, but some came from as far away as Chicago. They were here for other reasons, but they stopped by. To date in 2023, we have 49 such reservations that we bring to our Rochester facility and the Rochester community. These consist of private tours, on-site parties, small private charter group field trips, and so on. And last but not least, in the last 8 months, we've launched our group retreat services. We hosted a group of 4 people to South Africa in February that Jackie led. And we have at least 12 people joining us to the Azores Islands this coming October. More international or domestic US retreats are planned. Our long-term dream would be able to host our own small group, nature-based retreats and activities, corporate retreats, ladies' weekends, and much more at our beautiful 77 acres on Beauty Hill. So that's just a little bit about us. We put together, I'll follow that little summary with some credentials. I do want to apologize for Staples' maintenance of their ink. Can't hire good help these days. So the color is off on these copies. But I'll just walk you through this real quick because this will get us directly to the issue of why I'm here tonight. So the first 2 pages are documentation representing the state and federal regulatory oversight that we receive. I hold in my hand here a copy of the Animal Welfare Act, the federal regulation that we operate under. And the second page is actually our license that we just received that is good for the next 3 years, as we just completed some pretty arduous USDA inspections. One of the conditions of our approval last time was that our 270 Beauty Hill operations also become a part of our USDA inspected licensed operations, and they are that today. So these permits, the one from the state and the one from the federal government, cover both our Rochester and our Barrington locations. Now, the ambassador animals that we do all these programs with are still currently resident in our Rochester facility. The only animals we currently have at our Barrington facility are the farm animals. And that is in no small part to the decision that was made in April of 2020 by the planning board. Okay, but I assume that not everybody is familiar with the types of animals that we work with. So the following pages kind of list down through. I do not expect you to know what these animals are any more than you might expect me to understand the intricacies of your business or the tools that you use in your job or anything like that. And then the last page, so horrible with the color, I apologize, but I wanted you to see where we're at. Okay, so I have circled 152 Charles Street in Rochester. I don't know who's familiar with where Charles Street and Route 125 intersects with Lou's Garden kind of right across the street there. But you can see that we have one of the largest parcels on Charles Street at 0.46 acres. 0.46 acres. Everybody that you see around us has been a longtime supporter. The city of Rochester, a longtime supporter. I had a New Hampshire state representative come with a former New Hampshire state senator to our facility. I did not know this, but they booked a private tour. They were there a couple of weeks ago. And we were chatting after about our aspirations to relocate and build something bigger and better in the community of Barrington. And the lady who was currently serving as a public servant looked at me and she goes, you know what? It's amazing what you can do even in an urban environment. So that meant a lot to me. What I envision bringing the community of Barrington, I think maybe with regard to the animal and the nature and the environmental education component might best be just conceptualized as a land-based global conservation focus, just because of the nature of the animals that we work with and our teachings. It's kind of like a land-based version of the Seacoast Science Center. You think of what the Seacoast Science Center is to Ryan. For anybody who's ever been there, you know they have a lot of live animals. They're all kind of in the building. Now you can just kind of pay admission or get a membership and go around. So our business model certainly would be different, as everything that we do would be guided and led and so on. And we have a lot of other services that we do and intend to continue to provide in the future. But with regard to the animals, I'm very inspired by what the experience is like there. You know, it's not a massive campus. It's a relatively small space with a massive nature-based classroom around it. And that's what I look at this as. I look at the space that, well, I'll use this. My understanding is over the last 300 years, this parcel was massive beef cattle grazing and apple orchards down on, in developed residential areas further down Beauty Hill and so on. But in the past, you had the old Swain farmhouse with a 60-foot long attached barn. There was another massive barn with a couple of hay silos up here, silos. There was another barn here. And it was very, very animal intensive. They were breeding race horses. They had the beef cattle, the pigs, the chickens in the top floor of the barn. Tons of animals everywhere. And I'm not saying that they did everything perfect. In fact, there's an old well back here that you can't even use anymore because of poor manure management, right? So we definitely can do things better. And by no means are we talking about intensive animal populations anymore. But none of those barns exist anymore. They all either collapsed before I got there, or the one that was attached to the house I actually took down in the first few years I was living there because it was unsalvageable. We have a lot of already disturbed space. And all I'm talking about is putting new structures on the already disturbed space where barns used to exist. My prior approval was to actually, and again, this was approved, to put a long dirt driveway several hundred feet down here to the back of the field, dropping off an elevation, and a small dirt parking lot back here, and then an education building off here in the woods. Okay, when I'm getting quoted $110,000 just to put in customer parking, I'm like, sorry, I just can't. It's just not feasible. So we're going to be, should this be a project that the board would give the nod and the support to move forward with, get the surveying, get the engineering done to greatly reduce the environmental impact, make things a little bit more discreet. And instead of an education building down here as previously approved, we'd bring them up to where prior barns stood. Okay, but what's the holdup? Why was the approval given at the start of the pandemic? And understandably, the pandemic put a pause on everybody's life and businesses and so on. But it's been 3 years now. And you drive by Beauty Hill and nothing's changed. And largely if I could summarize it best, and you're the only one here that was here before, so I hope I'm understanding what was said back then, because I've made choices over the last 3 years based on it. But I was basically told the planning board, the town wants us to come to Barrington. The planning board supported our proposed plan. Go ahead, put in your parking for your customers. We already approved the use of in the zone as an educational institution. Bring your animals out, build your USDA licensed facility, bring them out here, do your educational programs. However, the animals have to go back to the Rochester facility to sleep every night. So the animals can be here for a 12 to 14 hour operational day. But when you close, you have to pay your staff and stress your animals and take them back to Rochester. And you have to maintain the mortgage and the lights and the heating and the utility. And basically what this does is this was a subtle no to the yes. So my question is there a way to get a yes to the animals permanently moving from 0.46 acres in Rochester to Beauty Hill? And how do we do that? And one of the first person who talks loses.
So I guess was there concern about animals escaping?
I
into the-
can only imagine. Again, I could not find anything in the Barrington Code that justified that or even,
So what's your
there
track
was nothing
record
that
in
gave basis
Rochester?
to it.
What's your track record in Rochester for animals escaping from cages?
Again, the Rochester facility has been in operation for 20 years and the city of Rochester loves us, right? We have an impeccable record. We have neighbors and abutters that absolutely love us. I did have a chameleon stolen out of a ficus tree by a raptor one time. And honestly, since a lot of incidents that happen, like you hear the things at zoos and stuff like that, like the gorillas out or whatever, right? That's usually keeper error. So I have had keepers improperly secure an enclosure. And I remember actually one time, one of our friendly porcupines came in early in the morning and he was just kind of like running around on the property. And that is the reason that USDA requires secondary perimeter fences, with dig barriers and all these other things. So that animals, if for some reason they are able to get out of their primary habitat, don't actually present a risk to the public or themselves getting too close to the roads that you see there and stuff like that, So, I mean, at the Barrington property, my goats have gotten out into the neighbors' yards a few times. But who hasn't had, goats just escape. You can't keep anybody's had goats knows that. Okay, but yes, again, there was no cause or justification for that decision. It's just, and again, we were virtual, our first virtual meeting. And I had no idea what was coming. We were kind of still in that 15 days to stop the spread. So I just said, thank you for your approval, and then went and tried to survive the pandemic. And 6 organizations like us across New England didn't. They closed. And we took on a lot of debt and actually rescued a lot of their animals. But we're still standing. So we're trying to figure out what is our way forward.
Andy, can you give us any insight as to?
So again, general comments on that is when it originally came in, I don't think there was intention at bringing animals out at that time. It was hey, we're going to bring them out. We're going to do this. And there was conversation about concerns about the animals being there. And it was like, nope, we're okay. We're not looking to do that right now.
Who said that?
I remember, I would have to go back and pull the virtual meeting because I'm sure we have it. But if I reviewed it, I remember there being a fair amount of back and forth about all of that. And
it had to do with agricultural animals were allowed. That's why you can keep your agricultural.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah.
And zoning is set up by if it's not specifically allowed, it's disallowed. So therefore, the other animals weren't allowed to come in. With that said, that zoning hasn't changed. But if you went to the ZBA and the ZBA gave you relief to use those animals in the thing as part of that regulation, then I think this board would approve that because they have the relief, because the way the zoning is written is the reason why you couldn't bring them other ones in. Remember, we kept looking up the stuff with agricultural animals.
So, yeah.
And exotic animals, and
Right.
it was all of that stuff that made so that it couldn't work.
And I was trying to connect with like Jeff Brand and people who have been there, because I was trying to remember some of the content around why it wasn't originally, and it wasn't. And I remember the agricultural part met and complied with all the zoning, so everybody was okay with it. And I think the secondary part was really like, yep, it's fine bringing them in, using them for the day, but to come back, but for them to live there as part of their life, it didn't meet the zoning requirement, which is where I agree with John. Like if you had ZBA relief on it,
Okay.
then that actually takes it out of our hands. Because if the ZBA issues you relief, there's nothing for us. Right.
Yeah. So nobody suggested ZBA at the time. All right. And the way it was described to me was that it wasn't as much the animals as the use. I remember clearly bringing up the example of one of the exotics that is commonly used in our programs and that we keep multiple of, called a hedgehog. Most people have heard, many have seen a hedgehog. Hedgehogs are completely legal for any member here to have one in their house. They're an unregulated species. Not a fan, but that's the law. All right. So one of the, I don't remember who it was, but one of them specifically said, you are welcome to have a hedgehog. A hedgehog can live at 270 Beauty Hill with you, but you cannot use it for educational commercial purposes. Okay, because we approved the use of this residential property as an educational institution. Therefore, if it is an unregulated animal, and of that list of animals, 85% of them are unregulated. Any member of the public can have a hedgehog, a boa constrictor, a parrot, whatever it happens to be. All right, but I can't have them live there and use them. If I have a small group of people come in, I can't do an educational talk with that animal because that would be an educational activity under the approved use.
John,
And-
where would I find those regulations? What section?
So if you go to the table of uses, as an allowed use, so you go to the page. So you go to page 93, and it says use agriculture, and it says agricultural uses around open market, keeping the boarding the horses and everything. But if you go to the agricultural definition, when you look up that, it talks about domestic animals. And I think that's where the issue came with the non-domestic, because that's the reason why you're able to keep the domestic ones, because that farming activity was straight up a lot.
Yeah.
And then if you go to section. You say agriculture, didn't say animal, I don't just say agriculture. There is a section in zoning that talks about the town center, and only animal that you can now grow crops, but that was just the town center.
Yeah, this is not town center.
Yeah, this is not town center, so that's not apply. So if you go to page 8 in zoning. You leave 3.2, parentheses 3, what it says is uses. The very end of that. If it's not specifically permitted in the zoning districts as indicated in the table of uses which you were just looking at, it shall be prohibited. And we couldn't find a place to put it in there as a listed use. But I think if they took it to the zoning board and they discussed that use, I think the zoning board could say that that use is allowed. Then I think it's really easy for this board to say, yeah, I have your educational facility there with those animals. That's where the hole was, in my understanding, if I remember.
This one under agricultural use, commercial keeping of, and it was commercial keeping of farm animals, because farm animals was the only thing
The farm
designated.
animals, that's what it was, because I think we found the definition of farm animals got brought up, and that's what it was.
Right.
These aren't farm animals, they're exotic animals.
Right.
Even though Derek showed you keep them, and I remember him even saying, so I think Ron would make an issue about a boa constrictor getting loose, and Derek saying, you can keep one in your house.
Well, there was also some concern that had been raised by abutters around that, having their kids out and around the yard and with like the potential of something moving freely amongst the property.
But I think
Would they-
Get the kids.
Yeah, behind us. Their concern was actually because I had a ladder up because I was disassembling that old crumbling barn.
Yeah.
That's what I remember. I don't remember that.
I thought it was also the,
The turkey.
No, I don't
Turkey
know.
walking around.
It was, the people who built the house off here, right?
Yeah.
Not there was there were the three people that were on that had comments provided were basically everybody that surrounds you, the people to the right, the people behind you, and then the mobile home off to the left. Yeah.
So I mean, if this is as simple as going to the ZBA, I'm happy to not waste the board's time and just do that. I did that in Rochester years ago. I've got no problem. I understand the animals are weird. Just the one thing that I would say is the approved use is as an educational institution. Right?
Right.
That and I don't mean to be disrespectful to my non-human coworkers here, but in essence, if the nature of the education were, I don't know, pick anything. And there are certain tools that are inherent to the delivery of those educational services. Right? It's like you've approved it, you've approved our business as an educational business and that use on the property. The animals are inherent to the delivery of those educational services that have been approved. So then how do the animals get disapproved? If it's simply because they're alive and not alive, is it simply because they're an animal and not a plant, which could also pose a threat as an invasive species to our lakes and waters and like, I'm just trying to understand, is there a way that the board can be like, yeah, they're a part of the educational business that's already been approved. Go forth and or go to the ZBA.
I remember going back and forth on this, and the reason that it didn't move forward was because in the approval of using the property for a use that was different than its permitted use, was that it didn't meet the approved uses through our table through there, which was why we said the farm animals became an acceptable piece, but I don't know what the right word is for the other species.
Non-farming.
Farm animals,
Exotic.
the exotics, you're right,
Yeah.
were that they were not, that they, in general, they could come out and be utilized for their component, but they had not been authorized or approved through that. And candidly, from my take, the ZBA is going to be probably your fastest and easiest way.
Okay.
A to Z.
I mean, but support Derek's argument, if you guys did it as that educational use,
Yeah, just,
and you determined that educational use could include those animals, you guys at this board can make that decision now. You have a right.
conditional use permit, right?
Look, he's already getting conditional use, we got his approval, but there was a restriction that was put on by the planning board at that time that keeping overnight staying of the non-domestic animals or non-farm animals, I can't remember exactly how it is.
Farm, because domestic are not required to be
Right.
authorized anyway.
So, but there was an issue because of that, and that's what that planning board issue at that time had. Now, you're a different planning board today. You have the right to make your decision based on the evidence presented in front of you for this change too.
I would be in support of him going and getting relief from the ZBA.
That's the safest route, or?
It ultimately guarantees that now his use is guaranteed
Unquestionable.
unquestionable and forever. It means that it is now part of your approved use for that property. Where,
So what am I granting exception to? Because if my use is approved under the conditional use as an educational institution, when I go to the ZBA, I'm not asking for relief from use as an educational institution.
you would be asking relief from the agricultural, hold on a second.
Sort of the definition of
Yeah.
agricultural animals,
It's-
right?
Yeah, but for Derek's argument.
Yeah.
Is his thing is about that educational thing that he got approved for, because there was what, education and environment center or something.
I mean, I've already been given the go ahead to house the animals there. Build at a facility that is safe, secure, that meets USDA requirements, that they have to inspect and approve before the animals can move there. But the prior determination was the animals can be there during the day. They can't be there at night. They have to be taken back to night quarters.
That was a condition placed by the planning board at that time, and when they give approval because of the conditional use permit come in, they can put restrictions on it because of that conditional use. Now, you could read your 3.4 and look at the conditional use and see if you would come up to that same conclusion.
And I would also like to point out, this was a proposed conversation, not a request to amend an approved permit.
Right.
Here today.
Right.
Yeah.
Conceptual.
Yeah, absolutely. We're kicking stuff around. I understand. Yeah.
And nothing
Finding.
Right,
Yeah.
but we can discuss what we could do.
Give direction.
Yeah.
I think to make sure that this is clear for Derek and ensures that it goes where he wants, because right now you're sitting here with 4 members. There's 3 other members that could be here.
Right.
And all it takes is a little bit of persuasion and all of a sudden.
Yeah.
You've done a whole lot of work that does not get approved the way you would hope it would.
Right.
Where if you go to the ZBA,
I agree.
it's
This was his application.
I agree. So,
We just want, what's the easiest route for
Yeah.
you and what's the safest route?
Yeah.
for you?
yeah,
I think
so
it's the cleanest route. for-
Vanessa has explained to me that. I'm sorry, I'm like 5 minutes. I apologize. So Vanessa explained to me, because we want to relocate the education building from the prior approval and the parking and so on, we basically have to submit a whole new site
The
plan.
new application.
Well, it'll be a whole new application. So do I go to the ZBA to address the animal concern before I've
Yes.
even submitted the application? Yes?
Yes.
That's the procedure, ZBA, then come before you with the whole
Yeah.
engineering and survey, all right.
Because then it's a complete, the animals component is off the table
Got it.
for the discussion. Then it's just you building out your
I have a
facilities.
question on the
And that
commercial use of farming.
is straightforward.
Restricting how many you could eventually put there.
No, it's by, you got it backwards. Those numbers,
Yeah,
those are allowed by right if you have enough acreage.
oh, okay,
If you go over that number or you're doing commercial keeping, you have to come in front of the planning board.
right.
At that time, the planning board could look at things like best management practice, how you handle even
Yeah.
know. What happened is I helped get these regulations written up by doing a lot of stuff through UNH.
Okay,
Because we had the guy that had 20 pigs on a quarter acre and a couple that died and the other ones were trying to eat it. We had to bring in, I mean, it was a legal case. There was quite a bit to it. So that's why we wanted to put regulations in place. And based on UNH, those larger animals need so much more for the manure to be lost in the environment. But once you go above a certain number, there's not, the same thing with smaller animals. That's how those numbers can be had.
so we're gonna see a nice, beautiful herd of cows, maybe on, drive down Beauty Hill Road.
Only if you're gonna buy half of one from me.
So we should.
Well,
name
that
them.
might be a problem.
So Derek, I
Where's
think your
Billy?
application to the zoning board would be that you're doing an educational institution and you want to have it so that it includes exotic animals, just to make it clear. And if they say, okay,
Yeah.
and I think that basically, even though it's not listed in zoning, you have the approval as though it is.
And that would be what the part I would drive is that the exotic, you already have the educational
Yeah.
facility.
Yes.
But the exotics do not fall into our zoning anywhere. So by addressing it with the ZBA, it makes it a non-issue for anything else the planning board is reviewing from that standpoint.
And just because, again, I don't want to waste the board's time or come here any more than I have to. You keep using the word exotic, which I think everybody in the room pictures something that's not from around here. But a significant number of animals are native species of wildlife, right? Fox, skunk, opossum, snapping turtle, stuff like that. That is not permitted, right? Because they are captive instead of wild. So they live there on their own. But if they live there with us, same exception, right? They are bundled in with the non-native or exotic animals.
I would
Just
go,
term for
yeah,
non-native, non-farm.
That's why I was saying non-domestic animals, just the non-domestics,
Yeah.
whether they're native or not.
I would include
Okay.
all of that in there.
Yeah.
That'll make it as clean for you as
Yes,
possible.
okay, very good. Thank you guys so much.
Okay, good luck. Good luck.
Thank you.
Hey.
I'd approve it except for the snakes.
I don't like, you know what? The snakes, the spiders, I'm cool with all that. It's the ticks that I can't stand.
Yeah.
And I can't
I
do
don't think
anything
the
about those. But yeah, I'll handle all of them. It's the
Next item, we have item number 7, plastic, private road application.
which are actually a record.
Ellis, Rocca.
There's the spider thing.
What? Logical niche that those things fit that we have to have.
Mhm.
It's not the most inviting.
It's-
All right.
So
Please proceed.
Pretty simple request, of the, primary residence on Bull Lake Road, a classic road. Total area of our property is 34 acres adjacent to the house. I'd like to put a small barn, 20-foot wide by 24-foot long or deep barn with two 10-foot lean-tos, one on either side of the barn. No running water, no plumbing,
No living.
no living.
It's open sided, so with the storage equipment.
On the lean-tos.
Yeah.
The main 20-foot by 24-foot section.
Okay, that'll be.
Would be closed, correct.
And for full disclosure, just in case anybody wants to know, Christina LaRoche has sold property for me. I've bought property from her and am currently working with her for other parcels. So
That's a
Just-
different person,
It's, yeah.
is it?
It's
It's not the same.
but I have been confused with Christina before.
I apologize because I misread
Names are
that.
Very similar.
It's so funny because we actually used her at one point as a field agent, like this is doing.
I just saw it as I read through it and
No.
the name just, I was like, oh, okay, yeah, no problem.
It's not the-
I
That's
apologize.
not the first time. Okay. So, but, yeah, it's pretty simple.
Anybody have any comments on the board about this? It seems-
Seems pretty straightforward.
No, I would make a motion to send the letter to the select board approving the, was it category 2? Off the
Category two.
Right.
category 2 permit for class 6 and private road.
Okay, roll call.
FI.
Happy LOI.
That's your.
Yes, you.
Yes. Crystal.
Well, you're good for now, and then you go to the select board meeting and, Tiffany should be able to let you know it's in July, I think it's our next meeting. Oh, wait, no.
There's one next week, but you
Next
probably
week.
won't, I don't know if you'll make the agenda or not.
Most, I won't guarantee, but I'll say that you probably will be on it, because I asked Tiffany. I'm gonna have a tour tomorrow, yeah, so,
Meaning be on the agenda for the next.
I believe so. I can't promise you anything, but
Because they were
going
going
to a bunch of
Just give Tiffany a call.
Yeah.
And I'm assuming that would go on the consent agenda.
yeah,
It would-
that's the reason.
So-
why they're gonna get on because of-
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Right.
That makes it easier for you to get it there.
Right.
So basically, we go to staff and we're just gonna sign it. and you're on it.
Get any easier than
Right,
that, right?
unless there are
Right.
questions, but yours is pretty.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, it's about as easy as it gets.
Yeah.
Next, item 8, request for extension requested by Josh. Anyone there? Anybody here? Oh, yes.
Yes, sir.
Stuff.
Good evening, everyone. Scott Cole from Beals Associates, representing Josh tonight. Josh from St. Helena Motorsports, his permit, or excuse me, his application is nearing expiration. Josh would like to request a 1-year extension. He is still coordinating with a traffic engineer, which is a requirement for an anti-DOT driveway permit. As everybody understands, the slot is actually right down the road, a couple hundred yards.
And is that the lot that was just cleared?
Yes, ma'am. Yep. So he's diligently working on that. And with today's current market, he is yet to endeavor the major cost of his new building. So with that, he would like to request an extension.
Make a motion to grant a 1-year extension for file 220 or map 223 lot 26-58 and 59 on Route 125.
I'll second.
Roll call.
Napa.
Happy LOI.
That's your.
Crystal.
Thanks very much.
Next, we have actually item B 1 and 2. Tree trimming on Old Settlers Road. And Scenic Road, Main and Back Road.
Mr. Chairman, I believe that Eversource is online Crystal, if you can unmute yourself or raise your hand if you're having trouble unmuting yourself. Please let me know.
Is it tonight, make them all go underground?
I see somebody
I'll second that.
unmuted. The last, that's number 603-831-9806. Are you, Crystal with Eversource to discuss these applications? Hey, I did the sound.
Hello, this is Crystal. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Oh, great. This is my first time trying to connect by phone.
Well, we can hear you perfectly.
Okay, great. Do you want me to introduce myself and start?
Yes, please. So you have two.
Yeah, go ahead. You have two applications for tree trimming.
The board will vote on one at a time. The first one is the Old Settlers Road.
Okay. So I'm a consulting utility forester contracted with Eversource. They've hired me to manage the tree trimming that goes on. So the scope of this project is just routine scheduled maintenance trimming that we complete every 4 to 5 years. It's mandated by the Department of Energy. It's required to maintain the safety and reliability of the electrical lines. So all the property owners have been notified. We send out notifications 45 days prior. We are hoping to commence this trimming within the next few weeks. We are not doing any tree removals here. This is strictly trimming around the conductors. I did send in a sample of the notifications that we send out, and within that, it explains what the scopes of our trimming is. So it's 15 feet above the primary conductors, 8 feet to the side of the lines, and then 10 feet below the top primary conductor. And that's basically it. It's just tree trimming. If there's any questions, I'm happy to answer.
Board have any questions?
You have to call to vote for accept application as complete.
No. Make a motion to accept the application as complete.
I'll second
Move things along here.
Yeah.
Okay.
Roll call.
Aye.
Capello, I.
Just here.
Crystal.
Application, and now you can open, if there's no board questions, you can open.
Don't you accept it? Anybody need to, would you like to comment?
Yes, my name's Daniel, I have 334 Old Concord Turnpike. I believe that's a historical road and stuff, and dot all your i's and stuff, but basically there's a lot of outages last winter from trees coming down there. So I think this time should be addressed. If there's trees that need to be removed for safety purposes, it should be taken down. It's in notice in a public meeting and stuff, and it's the best interest of the town. I know it's historical, but there was a lot of outages to that section because of pine trees. Thank you.
Okay, any more comments?
I don't agree with that statement.
I don't know if Crystal, if you want to address that. Okay.
I would actually, because it was, I think it was Cannonback Road was one of the most recent ones, and they wanted me to go out and assess it. And I'm happy to remove trees. I just didn't know if it was okay because it's a scenic road. I didn't know what you guys might approve, but if there are hazard trees that you would approve me to take out, I'm happy to do so because we have been having a lot of issues out there.
So this is Vanessa, the town planner. I can follow up with you to make sure that, see if you can do it under the planning board, or it might be a select board action.
Okay, and I'm not sure if some of these trees might be, I don't know if they're in the town right away, or if they're on private property, then we can go ahead and, my understanding, we can go ahead and remove that if it's private property, but if it's in the town right away, we need your approval.
That's a planning.
That would be. Planning board or select? board
Cutting,
at that point?
cutting on trees on the private, on a scenic road is a planning board approval, that's.
So
what they're trying to do.
they can remove it.
And they can take trees down as well.
There's been times where they had to take trees down, what was the one that? Guy put power down to our house. Last year,
Young Road?
Cooper Road, not Cooper.
Yeah.
Yeah, one made by Chris, I'm just past the letter,
Right.
Cooper Hill Road.
No, they did.
What's that? Cooper Hill Road. Is it Cooper? Okay, so they extended the power out through, and they had to take down like 4 trees or something in order to do it, because they had to put the poles and stuff in, and that was all approved by the planning board when they did that. But they came in and actually had a plan showing the trees that were taken down. With this application, it was just showing trimming, that's what you're approving.
That for the.
So they would have to make an application to take trees down for you to approve, is the way I understand that out of say.
And then designate the trees that are coming
Right,
out.
so they would have a plan showing what
Yep.
they're taking down, like they did on Cooper.
Normally, my process, when I do have specific trees that have been identified, I would have presented that to the board, and it would have all been
Correct.
itemized, so that you see like where it is, poll numbers and that sort of thing. But we didn't put a list like that together. We just, this particular request that Eversource has was just for tree trimming, but I'm happy to, deal with specific requests for tree removals, because I do think we need to probably look at that as well while we're there.
My understanding, you would have to make an application for those specific trees back to this board is how I think that RSA reads about that cutting of trees on that. Now, if one of the landowners wants to cut the trees themselves in the front, they have a right to do that, but you don't.
I would have to make a,
Can the
ahead, I'm
landowner
sorry.
say,
Thank you. You would have to make an application for those specific trees if you're taking them down to know them.
right, that's
Is it no, you could continue. I guess not to be so long.
Yeah, so I think your best bet, you approve this and do the cutting that they've already asked for, and then if you find other trees out there that are an issue, then you make another application to come back from, and that way you're not held up from doing the work that you're already proposing to do. Can you hear
Should I
me?
perhaps? So I was only prepared to request for the tree trimming in this particular meeting. If we're going to do removals, then I will have to come back to the board.
Yes.
For whatever the.
On the new application.
Is there anybody online that would like to make public comment for the road, this is the Old Settlers Road?
I'd like to make a motion first to accept the application as complete.
You guys.
We already did it.
We did?
Just did that.
We accept it?
Yeah.
Sorry, apparently I'm out to lunch here. I don't remember accepting it as complete. I just said aye though. I know what I did.
Or against, in addition, do we catch everybody?
It's been a long day.
Mr. Attorney, you don't think?
that's okay, we all have moments.
I'm having a lot of them lately.
I don't see anybody else. on
Okay,
the-
that's a
for this
different
one.
story.
Yeah.
Okay, so then we proceed,
Close the public hearing.
close the public hearing. And proceed for the notice of decision.
So are we ready for a motion?
Yes.
So I
Like
would,
to read the notice of decision.
Oh, thank you.
I wrote myself a cheat sheet, so.
Oh, good.
It was addressed.
so the-
All right, I'll read it for you then. How's that? Yep. Okay, so for the notice of decision, this is for the application, request by applicant for a site review to do tree trimming by Eversource along the scenic road, the Old Settlers Road, pursuant to RSA 231-158. The Barrington Planning Board at the June 6th meeting approved the application for your reference for the above utility company Eversource to do tree trimming on the scenic road, Old Settlers Road. Has been reviewed in accordance with the town of Barrington site plan review regulations for non-residential uses and multifamily dwelling units amended May 17, 2022, and the Barrington zoning ordinance amended March 28, 2023. The application has met all town ordinances and regulations of the town of Barrington. Now you got a motion and a vote.
Motion to accept the notice of decision. May I hear a motion? To approve this. To approve it.
Approve it.
Yep.
I'll second it.
Okay, I'll make a motion to apply for a site review to do tree trimming by Eversource along Scenic Road, Old Settlers Road pursuant to RSA 231-158. Does that cover it?
Bob? All in favor, roll call.
Aye.
Aye. Kathy, LOI.
That'd be right.
Okay, next one we have, next one from Eversource. Request for an application for site review to tree trimming by Eversource along Scenic Road, Canaan Back Road, pursuant to RSA 231-158.
So I don't know if you have, if you want to add anything else, but unless that's the German, I think you've kind of covered
Yeah,
that in the previous discussion.
any discussion on this one? Any
If
public
you-
comment? Oh,
It's the exact
Yeah.
same thing.
okay,
Nothing to add other than I will be on site while this is ongoing. So if there's any concerns or anything, I'll be available to speak to.
thank you.
Yeah, call the vote to accept the application complete.
I think it is.
Motion to accept the application is complete.
I second it.
Roll call.
Aye.
Kathy, LOI.
That's the right, just go on.
Right.
Public comment,
Yes, continue, please.
Daniel A. 335 Old Concord Turnpike. I just realized sitting there on Old Settlers that at some point, the town's gonna do a bridge there and stuff. So if select board or staff could look into it, if there's any trees that need to be removed for that future project, to do it all at once. While they have a public hearing on it. If the trees need to be removed in the future for that project, and they might remove the lines for a temporary bridge and stuff.
Yeah.
So I like to address it to the back, Old Settlers.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any public comment on this one? It's a closed public hearing. Somebody has to read the notice of decision.
I still gotta put the air conditioner on. Okay. The notice of decision for the 2023 Cannonback Road tree trimming, the request by applicant for a site review to do tree trimming by Eversource along the Scenic Road, Cannonback Road pursuant to RSA 231-158. The planning board, the Barrington Planning Board at the June 6th meeting approved the application reference for the utility company Eversource to do tree trimming along the Scenic Road, Cannonback Road. It was reviewed in accordance with the town of Barrington site plan review regulations for non-residential uses and multi-family dwelling units amended May 17th, 2022. And the Barrington zoning ordinance amended March 28th, 2023. The application has met all the town ordinances, regulations of the town of Barrington.
Hey, do I hear a motion?
Make a motion to approve as written.
12 seconds.
Second by Tessier, roll call.
Aye.
Kathy, LOI.
That's the right.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Here. All right. Next one. Item D3. Young Road. 240-8-NR-23- Frequency 33 owner, Young Road, LLC, previously known as the. What's the engineer site plan? The subdivided 23 lots using conservation subdivision ordinance. With waivers on the 5.55 with a lot, not 240 lot 8 in the neighborhood residential zoning district on Young Road. Christopher Barry is engineering. Welcome.
Mr. Chair, members of the board. We have submitted for tonight discussion regarding the yield plan at our last public hearing, Mr. Allard, who isn't present tonight, pointed out, as did the chair, that we really need to ratify and review the yield plan on this project. Because without consensus on the yield plan, the rest of this conversation is really kind of meaningless. We can do all the studies we would want to, but if the board doesn't agree with the yield plan, then it, like I said, it doesn't really matter that much. So tonight our focus is on the yield plan. The prior public hearing, a couple of the members had questions and concerns regarding the grade of the roads that were shown on the yield plan, and whether or not we would be able to meet the minimum and maximum road grades allowed in subdivision ordinance with those layouts. So what we've done is we've broken the yield plan out of the rest of the plan set. It has been revised so that the roads would have a little better advantageous topographic relief to them. We provided a 14-page plan set for just the yield plan and its approach. It still provides for 23 lots within the subdivision, frontage lots along Young Road, proposed road 1, and then proposed road 2, which now takes its access from proposed road number 1. The wetlands crossing that's shown is still generally the same location that it was prior. It's the most minimum location, minimalistic approach to the crossing. The proposed crossing, as we've graded out the roadway, is just under 2,000 square feet of wetlands disturbance. So pretty small impact area, certainly approvable by DES, given the fact that we're able to access 3 proposed units on that side of the wetlands. Each one of the roadways provides for a maximum of 2% within 100 feet of the roadway. Max grade of the primary road is at 7% based on the number of units that are off from that roadway. The second access road is a max grade of 9% because it has 4 units or less, and therefore the proposed road grade is allowed to be more. Each one of the houses shown are proposed in locations that have topographic advantage, that have driveway access available to them, so that the grade of the driveway entering the lot either conforms with the 10% or would be constructed with either a drive under or an at grade, so that again, the topography is used to the advantage of the home site. I point all these out, all of these details out in our memo to the board. Each one of the lots has the appropriate setback shown. Each one of the lots respects the 50-foot wetland setback where applicable, the 100-foot prime wetland setback where applicable. We took the time to physically grade each one of the roads out and show how stormwater as well as back slopes grading would take place in each one of those and how they would affect each one of the proposed lots and access into them. I point out the last part of our memo that we're proposing an open space conservation subdivision where it states that the number of units that could organically be achieved on a parcel cannot be exceeded in the open space subdivision design. We've chosen to show the board tonight the layout as it would be in a conventional layout for subdivision, but we also point out that each one of these lots or a few of these lots would be available for either a duplex or multifamily use. And certainly if we did not have lot lines within our subdivision, this would be merely a calculation of how many units could fit on the parcel based on total upland, total area, contiguous upland areas, and that multifamily use. And we submit to the board that that intensity of use would be much larger than the proposed use and the proposed provided yield plan. So for those reasons, we think that our yield plan is appropriate for the site. We have well over 60 acres in a zone that requires less than 2 acre minimum zoning. We provide for 200 feet of frontage. And the open space subdivision provides for 23 lots that would be designed under the conservation subdivision. Now, we point out that the underlying zoning would permit additional units, but we cannot physically fit those lots on the conservation subdivision itself based on the style in which we're going about that project. So I'd be happy to answer any questions that we have on the yield plan itself. We're not here to discuss the rest of the project at all. We have other studies that are underway that need to take place prior to coming back to the board to discuss the project in totality.
Board have any questions on the yield plan?
I don't have any.
Mr. Chairman, just, let you know, they had requested a waiver, with their application, and tonight, we also need a vote on applications completed, so feel that it's completed.
And one question on the road access from a class 5 road.
Yes.
I'm looking at 1,650 feet. You total up the lengths of the road.
That's
You're doing 2 separate ones of 1,000 feet.
That's right. Yep.
Board has no more questions on the yield plan. Open it up to public.
You gotta accept that.
Oh, yeah, let's set the application is complete.
Do you accept their waiver? If you do accept their waiver, read the waiver, what the waiver on the waivers? Unless you, what we're taking that one back.
Well, I thought the board had already accepted our application as complete.
No, we didn't. Okay.
Well. We're
No, that's
here.
fine.
But,
Well,
they didn't want to accept it because of the changes. Potential changes to you.
I see.
a requested waiver from the applicant. The requirement of stopping distance from Article 12, Section 12.13, Figure 4A, site distance definition, subdivision regulations. The distance or site distance to be consistent with the standard use and practice of the American Association of State Highway and Transportation Officials. I'm not granting the waiver we're proposing.
So I just, it's more of a point of order.
Sure.
So that waiver is not an application. That waiver is not a completeness item. That is a design item. So I think it's important that the board recognize that there is a waiver request for which we think we vary from your regulations. But I don't think that that waiver needs to be discussed or granted as part of the completeness of our application. It needs to be discussed fully later on in our application and then adjudicated at that point.
Okay, you can do that.
So if the board doesn't have questions or concerns about the yield plan, and that was the only outstanding item for completeness, then I hope that the board finds that it's complete.
Okay. Make a motion.
I'll make a motion to accept this complete.
Seconds.
I'll second it.
Okay. Roll call.
Nap aye.
Happy LOI.
That's your eye.
Just a lot. Comments from the public? Public comment? Anybody have anything to say on the yield plan?
How you doing? Bob Cavalry, 150 Young Road. I got a chance to look at this briefly. I saw this. I know that Ron Allard was here last time and he was one that was very skeptical on the yield plan. He pointed out specifically these houses back here and as far as getting them in there and getting the permit to cross the wetlands there. And between this yield plan and the previous yield plan, there's not really much I saw that was different. So as far as being skeptical on the yield plan, I think there should still be questions on that. But I'll leave it at that for this. Now, I know the yield plan is what's the topic for tonight. But if you would allow, I'd like to discuss the further on to the conservation subdivision, if you guys are open to hearing that.
I think we should probably stay with what's presented tonight.
You've already accepted the application.
Yeah.
Just for the yield plan, all right, and there will be further discussion at a later point on the conservation
Yeah.
subdivision,
A
okay,
lot of studies and they'll have to come back and.
okay, all right,
Done to all
all
that.
right, perfect,
Mhm.
thank you.
Yeah, I thought we did. Request them, you mean?
You want to do it again?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much.
Other public comments? You haven't closed public
Oh.
comment, yet, so.
Don't see anybody online.
No more? Okay, closing public comments.
But, if you do want the board to do CMA review, that was not made
Oh, okay.
a motion to do that or not. It was discussed, but there was no need to actually vote on.
You might want to see his total application to his build out before you go to that point, because that's the stuff that would be sent to CMA, not this.
Right.
Sure.
Yeah.
So
So
we,
we come back with
yeah,
the next presentation.
we would much prefer to have the complete application study and then discuss with the board what CMA reviews
Sure.
as a portion of that, moving forward.
Okay.
Just to answer the abutters comment, I realize the board has moved on from the yield plan, but Ron's specific question had to do with the first road that we showed, the topography getting into that, across the wetlands and then back into the site, whether or not the topography would allow for those lots to be accessed and built on. And we've quite clearly demonstrated through this modification that they could be.
Topography is much more advantageous.
Yes, sir.
Way, right?
Yep. So just so the board understands, now that we've pulled this yield plan out and the board's accepted this yield plan, it will be removed from the remainder of the plan set. Unless the board feels.
Just for clarity, they haven't voted to accept the yield plan yet. You still got to vote to accept the yield
Oh,
plan.
okay.
You had a discussion on it, and everybody didn't have any questions, but you haven't voted. I just want to make sure it's in the record they voted on it.
Understood.
Ready to make a motion?
The only thing I just wanted for my own clarity is with the contiguous uplands that has to be, what is,
35,000.
okay, that answers my question. I just 35,000 of,
Contiguous uplands, you gotta have 60,000 for your hydric and exposure.
I remember reading it earlier and I was trying to remember what it is, as I said, my,
I have to draw it each time. Yeah.
I'll make a motion or should I make a motion?
go for it.
Motion to accept the yield plan as presented.
Oh, that's all we had to say? I second it.
John.
Napa.
Capello, I.
It's forced into it. Thank you.
Can I ask a question? What is the intent of removing it out of the application as opposed to leaving it there as a component of proof that
I would-
shows that it's?
So it's not that, I don't want to remove it out of the application. I want to remove it from the plan set. Plan set's already 50 some odd pages. I've just added another 14 for tonight's discussion and demonstration. So if the board wants these added to that, I think, or at least I can keep the overview yield plan in there. That's fine. I just would rather not in that full package have a road design that no one intends to ever build. That's all.
Could we just reference it as this, as an appendices
Yes.
almost?
Yep. Perfect.
And the land use department would still have a copy of this as part of the application.
Right, but by noting it as a reference to appendices, it points out the fact that the completed work was, like, they did their homework to actually show that it was completed.
You looking to continue to a certain date?
We can continue to the July meeting, and if we need additional time, then we'll ask for it.
Okay.
The July meeting is the 11th, because the holiday is.
Skipping it.
Yeah.
July then.
You're not trying to meet on the 4th of July?
You can, most certainly will. I'm gonna keep it
I'm gonna have a tough time getting a quorum for that one.
Make a motion. We can
Motion to continue to,
July 11th.
July 11th.
Second.
2023. Seconded, roll call.
Nap aye.
Capital line.
Yes.
Crystal, aye.
Thank you.
Small forest and plant sets. So
Okay, we have some- New applications, item C1. 251-3. On the 3.14 and 41 GR23 LL owners SS Park Family Development Trust, Nicholas 56, Michael and Susan Newski Family Trust.
It's nice when she puts me on back to back. It's painful for everybody else, but it's fine.
You don't look like Joe.
So Christopher Berry with Berry Surveying and Engineering, representing the Hart family, the Newski family, and the Fitz family here. I'll keep it as brief as possible within the length of your agenda. They own, between the three of them, own parcels of land along Province Road. So we have a parcel here, here, and then jointly, they own the remaining lands. This was part of the subdivision that was done in the early 2000s. And they purchased the larger parcel with the wetlands on it in an effort to ensure that nobody else would build on it and they could use it for recreation space, essentially. They're now at a point in their lives where they want to sort of reshuffle the boundary lines of each one of the lots to protect that interest moving forward and make it a little more square and reasonable. And so I know Joe, and just so everybody's aware, Joseph Berry, my younger cousin's the one that prepared this application. He, after I reviewed it the first time, he took the time to put together the colored plans. Hopefully you have these in your packet, because they pretty clearly demonstrate what we're trying to achieve. And so the first color plan shows some of the oddities. So this is the existing condition where the red lot sort of juts into the green lot. The green lot has this odd protruding thumb behind the red lot. The blue lot is pretty rectilinear now. And then the yellow lot is sort of the makeup of the remaining lands. And so the proposal is the second color sheet where the red lot ends up with this remaining parcel. This center lot is squared off, so a portion of the original red lot is added here. This is squared off. This lot is also added to, and then the last lot, which is really a reduction in size, still conforming and meets all your regulations. So there's a lot of lot lines swapping around between the three parties. But at the end of the day, I think that certainly on paper, this makes a lot more sense than the original layout. I'm sure there were reasons it was done the way it was to begin with. As is typical, we have no lots that are less than 75 feet in width. Knowing certain individuals on the board, we took the time to dimension that for you to ensure that we were not 75 feet or less. And otherwise meets your regulations. We have delineated the wetlands on site. We delineated the topography on site. Joe's gone out and done test pits on the lots that don't have existing septic systems and CA numbers. And he's provided the well locations, both existing and proposed, to ensure that no utilities are being transferred accidentally as part of the application. So with that, I'd be happy to try and answer any questions that you might have.
Any questions for the board?
So are they hoping to develop this? What's the yellow on here? Because there's no house on this. lot.
There's no house there now. It would still remain a developable lot. Yeah. I don't know what their intent is, but it's still a developable lot.
I can answer that for you if you like.
Sure.
Yeah. I'm Steve Hart,
Hi.
and our intent is to sell that,
Mhm.
hopefully to my brother. and build a house.
All right, thank you. I was just curious what you're doing with it.
More questions? Open to public comments. Anybody have any comments on this application? We should probably accept the application as complete. Do I hear a motion?
Make a motion to accept the application is complete.
I'll second that.
Roll call.
Aye.
Happy LOI.
Testing it.
Still on. Now we'll move to public comment. Anybody online?
Anybody online for or against this application? Mr. Chairman, I do not see anybody online for or against this application.
Okay. No waivers. Yeah, recommendation. With waivers. What is the decision?
The notice of decision for case file 251-3, 3.1, 4, and 4.1-GR-23-LL owners Espinath Hart Family Revocable Trust, Nicholas and Kristen Phipps, Michael and Susan Newski Family Trust. For the lot line adjustment, the request applicants for proposal to relocate the lot lines from map 251. Lots 3, 3.1, 4, and 4.1. Lot 3 was 1.4 acres, so it'd be 6.19 acre. Lot 3.1 was 1.34 acres, it would be 1.34 acre. Lot 4 was 12.45 acres, will be 1.83 acre, and lot 4.1 was 2 acres and will be 7.18 acre located on Providence Road, map 252 in the general residential zoning district.
When you're done, I just have a question I forgot to ask earlier.
Oh, you can go ahead now.
Okay. I was just curious, in 251 3-1, I know you made it so it's the exact same size, but is there a reason why it wasn't made into a conforming lot? The front, it didn't get the added square footage to be a conforming lot, because technically as you change the lot lines, it should have to become conforming, otherwise it would need a waiver, I would think.
So, I had quite a discussion with the staff about that. We actually don't need a waiver because the way the zoning reads is it gives you 2 cases. And in this case, because it's an equal land swap, it conforms to zoning.
If I can find the thing for you, it says that as long as it's no longer, if it's doesn't become more non-conforming, it's allowed straight up in the. I remember when I was on the planning board, we used to have to send you the ZBA all the time.
Because I was reading through your narrative and I didn't see anything that drew attention to that, and I meant to ask about it.
Well, the original notice, the reason I'm chuckling is the original notice of decision that was sent to us had a minor typo in it that changed how you read the notice of decision, and it alarmed me. And so I reread the zoning to ensure that we had it proper
Okay, the staff report, yeah.
in the staff report.
Because I said meet instead of meets.
Yes,
You would
right.
have to meet it,
So
our meeting.
she implied that I had to meet it instead of that I did meet it. Yes. Yeah.
Right.
1.4, absolutely, today. We need to do what you want.
Okay.
1 point.
But it says that the lot line adjustment that not created new violation of zoning ordinance or increase the existing frontage.
It goes on to say in that same instance that equal land swaps are also.
Yeah. Yeah, because it says, "Now, lot line adjustment does not decrease the size of the non-conforming lot or render the non-conforming lot non-conforming, and that the lot line adjustment does not result in a change of the total area of any involved lot."
Yep.
What was that? Sorry, what one was that on?
It's 5.1.4, then it's got one, and then it's got A, B, and C.
Yeah.
It's on page 20 of the zone. And you could read parentheses too, basically says that. I remember when I was on the planning board, we changed this because every time someone would come in, they were actually making their lot better.
Yeah.
You know, it had land to it, if it's still non-conforming, so they had to go to the ZBA to create a non-conforming lot that was bigger than their existing lot. So that's why this stuff got added.
Thank you. Yeah, that just, I had made a note on it, but forgot to ask about it.
Oh, I'm just reading it.
Yeah, she's reading the
Yeah,
notice of
I
decision.
started, and then,
And
just in
then,
case it would have changed something.
yeah, very good.
To the Barrington Planning Board at June 6, 2023 meeting, commission approved the application. Was reviewed in accordance with the town of Barrington, New Hampshire subdivision review regulations. BFB 2022 BI in the Barrington zoning ordinance amended March 28, 2023. The application has met all town ordinances and regulations of the town of Barrington. All the precedent conditions must be met by the applicant at the expense of the applicant prior to plans being certified by the planning board. Certification of plans required prior to commencement of any site work or approval of any plans. Once these precedent conditions are met, and the plans are certified, the approvals and plans. Please note, all the conditions are not met within 12 calendar months a day of June 6, 2024, the board's approval has considered to have lapsed unless a mutually agreeable extension has been granted by the board. The conditions precedent are as follows. Item number 1, add the following to the plan. All owners' signature, wetland scientist signature, professional surveyor signature, listing street right of way dimension and pavement with dimensional plans, label wetland size. As kind of block revision from town of Barrington planning board approval. The applicant surveyors will certify in writing the bounds and pins have been installed according to the submitted plan. Any outstanding fees to be paid to the town. Number 4, prior to obtaining board signature. Applicant shall submit 2 full-size copies of the site plans, 1 11x17 copy in the PDFA file format with supporting documents as required in Article 3. The Barrington site plan. Site plan, please. Or in the Barrington subdivision regulations. With a letter explaining how the applicant addressed the conditions of approval. Planning board shall find and date all plans taken into consideration of approvals. Or shall endorse 2 full-size copies of site plan for the records of 1 11x17 copy. Which would be in the case file folder. General subsequent conditions, if there's current use. Subject property or portion of it is in presently current use, the applicant must provide a town of Barrington assessing department current use map. And or other items needed to assure reference to RSA 79A New Hampshire Department of Revenue. Administration rules are satisfied.
Anyone make a motion?
Make a motion to approve application 251-3. Looks like comma 3.1, comma 4 and 4.1-GR-23-LL.
I'll second that.
Roll call.
Nap aye.
Debbie LOI.
Jesse, right?
Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Next up is our agenda, is I didn't get to Steve through. 269-11.1-RC-238 SR. And then chair as well.
Good evening, Steve Hay with Civil Works representing the applicant. This is a site plan amendment for a 300 square foot shed. To be on, basically it's on the property now to have that approved as part of the site plan. And meet all the setbacks. We did meet on site with the planning department as well as the building department. We reviewed the work that was already underway with the previous approval. There is correspondence with with staff about the fencing that's already been scheduled, and there's a commitment from the 125 fences when they're going to be here. I think next week. They're here this month anyways to install the fencing. So all the work, and I'm not quite sure if the placards have been installed yet, but this is really just an amendment for the shed that's on site.
Comment by the board.
I have lots of comments.
Proceed.
The original requirement on that was that was going to be removed.
It was a 200 square foot shed that was removed, and then they brought this one on site.
So we took out a littler one and brought in a bigger one?
Yeah.
Spectacular. Has all the other stuff been done? Did they add in detention and drainage?
Yes. Yes, so we were on site with staff, and they did confirm that all that was there and met the setback requirements as well. All the areas have been loomed and seeded.
There was a slight modification, the swales, they're actually creating a swale. When DES had the wetland restored, they requested that a little berm be put along there. And they wanted to leave that berm that controlled the water instead of creating a swale. But that was to conform to DES's requirement that was filed with it.
So there is a slight depression in the swale as shown on that drawing. What John was talking about is leaving the little berm that was there for that exact reason. So that was
DES required it. So
right.
we thought it was reasonable to let them leave that where it was a DES requirement. I just wanted to make sure that it's clear at this meeting that that's still there, just so.
Yeah.
Would you go over where this shed was? Because you're relocating it, right?
No, we're not relocating it. The shed that was there was removed.
It was
They
removed,
brought a
okay.
larger shed on site.
To the same location?
No, essentially where you're seeing it is where the shed needs to be where it's gonna go. So that
You removed.
So-
that's within the-
So where it says relocated existing, I'm
one in
not
the-
clear where you're putting it.
So the document you're looking at right now, see the dark rectangle that says relocated 300 square foot shed?
Yeah.
That is where the shed will be placed.
Okay.
But it's not currently there now.
Yes, it is.
They have,
Public comment, right?
Yeah.
Close your comments, please, the public comment.
that's how they're, so the shed is there.
Okay.
That is correct.
Okay.
And where was it before?
It was actually perpendicular to what you see there right now. But when we were on site with staff, the shed was there. And John had pointed out, says that's larger than the 200 square foot, which you don't need a site plan approval for. You got to come back for a site plan amendment because it's 300 square feet. And therefore it has to be
It
setback.
wasn't because it was under 200 square feet. Even if it was under 200 square feet, you would still need site approval. But because it was over 200 square feet, it could not be in the setback.
Right.
Because the 200 are exempt from setbacks and the 300 isn't. So they had to move the shed so that you met the setbacks of
Okay.
30 feet from the side.
Okay.
Yeah.
He knows better than I do. Sorry.
Right.
I know what
But it's a
saying.
different
You can't do
But-
that, yeah.
But I remember reading, like seeing in the original plan set that it was a removal of the shed. It was gonna be, it was taking it off and taking it to one.
That's the reason why they're coming in to amend their plan, because they want to amend the plan to allow that shed there. That's the amendment.
And the shed would meet all the setbacks.
And I hope this board requires them to come in for the building permit on it too, because it's over 200 square feet.
Oh, yeah. Well, again, this is like a repeated process of the bullet leaving the gun before anything is done correctly.
I think you're right.
It's just one non-compliance after another, and it's a repeated process of doing whatever is felt like being done and then begging forgiveness afterward.
It really is no difference than if we had come in and showed this 300 feet. And I understand your chagrin at this point, but I don't think the personal feeling associated with it should be part of your discussion.
It's not a personal feeling, it's an insult to the work this board does.
No, please understand. They're asking for permission for a 300 square foot shed to be placed on their property as part of this site plan. So what we're asking for right now, you've already granted the site plan. The shed happens to be there, yes. If you want to remove the site from the site and then bring it back, they're still asking for this shed to be placed on the site with part of the site plan amendment.
That was part of the discussion we had with the town's attorney about how you look at approvals going forward. You can't go back on looking to punish. You don't have that authority.
Any comments?
No comment?
I do see that somebody's online. There's a gentleman here first. We'll do online and then then you can talk after he's done.
My name's Daniel, I'm 334 Old Concord Road. I am a butter. And this is a learning experience. I am a stupid person. I am a stupid contractor. I spent a lot of time and money following building codes and town ordinances. A plan signed by the vice chair shows removal of the pool and a 300 square foot thing. That plan was never supplied a public planning board meeting. No as-built plan available yet that shows it meets all conditions of approval plan. No fence as of yet today, no signage on buffer. The poorly on no signage on the buffer, poorly cleaned up. The buffer with more lawn. Wetlands and buffers are to be restored to a natural vegetation, not more lawn. There's no square as of today. What is going to be the finished and final plan on the as-built plan? They at the last meeting, that business signage went up on the ADU on the filled in buffer in the front yard. That wasn't on the plan. What is the next ordeal I have to go through as a butter? Will the as-built address all issues and the approvals recorded by the town and planning board? The town and planning board is supposed to ensure abutters no unnecessary hardship or an intent of town ordinances and regulations. So my understanding is they're in here to put the 300 foot within the setback.
No.
That changes, and that plan changed again?
What's the building sign that you're talking about?
On the future pavements on the ADU inside the building. And that
Which
wasn't
building?
addressed
That,
in the front yard.
the shed that would be right here.
Okay.
And the no signage application was put in last meeting. So it's a learning experience for me. And I didn't see a set of plans or the proposed where the shed is gonna go. So I thought right now it's right up against the property line. So I'm gonna,
And I'll be candid, I feel like we were really flexible the last time in letting them make corrections to all of this and then submit the plan afterward with what was agreed upon verbally and then submitted and then signed afterward. And I didn't sign it. I believe Ron signed it because I was away. But Did I sign it or did Ron?
No, Ron.
But I remember reviewing it.
They're allowed to put a temporary banner sign on a permanent structure to 16 square feet. That's temporary for 30 days. So if the 30 days hasn't expired, then it's still a legal sign. Now, if they want to put a permanent sign there, they can come in and get a sign permit from me, and they're allowed to do 2 square feet for every lineal foot of that building. That building's 20 feet long. They can put a 40 square foot sign on that building as a permanent thing by getting a permit through me. But that temporary sign is much smaller than that, but that's allowed by right in regulations.
I mean, I
It's
don't
not
know.
like
It's, yeah.
it's something where they come to me. So
I-
technically, right now, that temporary sign is temporary.
There's another person still. She's public
So-
comment. There's some.
Yes. I filed a complaint. My husband and I have had the police out here 4 times in the last several weeks. They were just here tonight. I forwarded video of this evening. We are extremely upset. There's been no fence that's been built. They have been parking their trucks here for months before the wetland buffer was finalized. In the last few weeks, they haven't been here, but prior to that, all of their equipment has been parked here. The shed, the very big shed, is parked pretty much as close to our property without it being on our property as it possibly could be. It's been there for months and months. I went out just to illustrate the volume of music that they're playing coming from this shed literally shakes our home. And polite requests to turn down the music, we've had to call the police. We had Officer Jamie Young here for the 4th time in several weeks. Mr. Cuccia refused to turn down the music. I sent a video from earlier this evening. I sent it to Ms. Price and Ms. Irvine. If you'd care to look at those videos right now, I sent them to your emails. It demonstrates the volume of music. We cannot be out in our yard because their shed is so close to our property line. It's absurd how close to our property line their shed is. So they're asking for this change, which clearly impacts us in a very negative way. There was an agreement that a fence was going up. We haven't seen anything about a fence. There are trees down now on our property. We have no idea how those trees went down. But they've been parking all of their heavy equipment there. My understanding was all of the things that you folks said that they needed to do needed to be complete before they moved all of their heavy equipment back over here and began using it in the desired way that they want to use it. I didn't realize that they were able to just start using it whenever they wanted.
The other thing I would point out is the on-site equipment storage. They were listing everything, but it was never the intent to have every piece of that equipment
Yeah, I noticed that.
parked on the lot. They
Well,
were
and
saying what could be parked there, but there's supposed to be a defined limit of what's parked there.
there's the camper, there's the shed now, there's a variety of, dump trucks and heavy loading equipment and trailers. I mean, it's a free for all. There's the dumpster, there's just any number of things, and they have been parked there for months. They were moved in the last maybe 2 weeks. I sent an email asking about this. I never got a response. I'm just confused as to why they're allowed to have this bigger shed and why they're allowed to have it so close to our property. I really would ask that you please open those emails and listen. We are unable, truly unable to sit on our porch in our home. We can't have our doors open. I work from home. I can't do it. I have a state job that I need to be on Zoom calls. I can't do it because he's so intoxicated and playing music at such a volume.
Mr. Chairman,
Can I
this has nothing to do with the application.
It does have to do with it because it's the shed. The music is
Chairman,
coming from the
Mr.
shed.
Chairman, if it's an item to the application, I think it'd be appropriate.
Right. It true.
Well, the shed shouldn't be there is what I'm opposed to. I don't want the shed there.
Unfortunately, there is a 30-foot setback to your property line and it is beyond,
Not right now.
not right now, but it will be beyond that.
It's not 30 feet from my property.
No, it will be, it has to be moved 30 feet away from your property line. Which is what.
It's within 4 feet of my property.
No, it is currently, but the reason they're here is to move it. That was a.
No, they want to leave it where it is.
No, they're moving it, have to move it. And you'll be inspected by the code enforcement officer that it's been moved.
My understanding was they wanted to leave it where it is.
No, if it's only 4 feet, no. We don't have any.
If it was under the 200, they'd be able to, but when we went over and saw that it was over 200, we told them they couldn't. That's why they're modifying this plan
Right.
and moving the shed so it's 30 feet away, because they can't have it closer than 30 feet by regulations.
Now, the question that was raised by Andy on the equipment. We thought that most of that equipment would be brought to a secondary.
It is. I drove by it at Barrington last weekend. I was cutting across the road about the boat. And when you got Ridge Road that comes off Route 11 right by Cameron Sartron.
Okay.
The house there that his son owns, there must have been 40 pieces of equipment there with a name on it.
Yeah.
But that all was in this driveway.
I've been by there and I can tell you I've seen more than 2 pieces of equipment parked in
Yeah,
that.
so, Mr. Chair, may I?
Go ahead.
So as you guys recall at the last meeting, you guys asked us to identify exactly all the equipment that could be parked on that property. There was no, you could only park 1 or 2. It was, you guys wanted to know all the equipment that they had available to park on this piece of property. So we did that.
That's not accurate.
That is absolutely accurate,
Yeah.
sir. Yes, it is. That's why we have it on this plan and that's why you guys approved it. And that's why you signed the plan.
What was approved was that list of equipment, but it had to all stay in that area that was.
That's exactly right.
As long as it stayed in that defined area, that's what was approved in that plan.
Absolutely.
20 feet of the 30-foot shed is going into the area where they park, which apparently it is.
They won't be able to park.
So they can't park at all. It's, so whether you like this project or not,
I don't care if I like it. It's,
well, that's exactly my point. You don't have the right to have an opinion whether you like it or not. The issue is you've approved the site plan. There's an improvement. This is, now we're asking for an amendment to the site plan that asks you to have a shed on the site located where it's shown on this parcel on this site plan for an amendment.
okay.
And that's what we've asked the planning board to take a look at. We've had staff out there relative to the requirements of the original approval. All that work has been completed and, or you have documentation that most of the work is underway. The fencing has been ordered. 125 is committed, indicating that they are going to be installing that, which you have an email from that effect, actually from 125. You have it in your file.
We were never consulted on where the fence was going or any of
It
that.
doesn't have to be. It's
You
not
don't.
public comment.
Well, it's, you get some fellow comment.
Still, it's about.
2 things, ma'am. If it's a noise disturbance, you have to call the police. We have. a
Yes,
new-
and we have repeatedly, and
You
he
have to
was,
do it every day. Just keep doing it and eventually they will be fines, I imagine.
but you know what? And we are doing that.
Yeah.
It's just really not a nice way to have to live. And I'd like to ask their representative, your intention is to move the shed? I didn't hear you say that.
No, that's why they're here. We have a whole plan set. You can find this online.
Can I just ask him the question? I'm asking him the question.
Well,
Where,
it's not a back and forth, ma'am. You have to direct all comments to the board.
okay, so you're telling me that they're moving the shed.
That is the purpose of them being here, to move it 30 feet away from your property line, where the fence will be located.
The fence is gonna be on the property line. That was.
Yeah.
what's approved.
Yeah.
And where they're erecting something on our property line, we are not entitled to know.
Well, they usually do stagger it a foot off there, so we won't be
But
on.
we're not entitled to know where it's going to go or where it's going to begin, where it's going to end.
It was
If
on
it's
the
going to be
plan.
on,
It's on the plan set. If you get the plan set on the site.
It
on
was
the-
the plan that was previously approved. The fence hasn't
Yeah.
changed.
Yeah, that was approved. They're actually here just as an amendment to what had been approved. Apparently, public comment is still open. Would you like to speak?
I'm just a stupid idiot. I went into the planning office this morning, Daniel at 334 Oak Bend, and I asked if there's any new plan. He said no. So that's why I didn't know. And I don't really like computer stuff, and I'm not frozen my eyes today. So I was on the attention, there's no new plans. And since they're in front of the planning board, I thought it was supposed to be new plans anyway and stuff. And I thought, so I didn't know. All my question is, I haven't asked for as-built or anything in that direction and stuff. So now, what's gonna be the end result? And if it's going back and forth, they make changes. That's why the next day there's a sign there. There's no sign permit. They're not gonna do that. Now they bring sheds in and out. Whatever, I don't care, as long as they meet the regulations, and that's the intent. But the town and the board has to look out for the regulations for the best intent. You cannot put a disturbance on our butters and stuff. And then health, I don't know the exact words of the health and welfare and all that good stuff. And they intend. But all I wanna know is, I can sleep through them being drunk and being loud, so I'm lucky. Doesn't bother me. But that has nothing to do with this board meeting. But I just want a set of plans and stuff, because it don't work out, because I can't get no justice in this town, it seems like. So I will go to court if I have any problem with them. But at my expense, I can put a fence and a gate up to protect my own property. How much more do I have to suffer?
Thank you. Staff recommendations is to approve of amended site plans to identify. Close the public comments. That's why we're here. We don't need a new notice of decision. Just, and then vote to renew the.
Yeah, since you're not substantially changing the original occupation, they don't continue those decisions, they would still meet their conditions by November 1st. And say on their notice of decision. This is just amending the site plan.
Yep.
Not just amending the site plan to allow for, very quick, but.
Right.
The board.
To this, the location indicated. Yes.
No, but that wasn't, just to clarify as well, as part of that requirement, you would have an as-built when the work is complete.
The as-built will show the modification with the shed along with the other stuff that's required before.
Correct.
Any more? Anything the board motion needs? To be amended? Site plan.
The only thing I have, I would request that, like, we talk about the equipment that's on there. There's no way you could legitly get all that equipment on site. So putting
a lot to me, you got 3 32-foot trailers. Couple of dump trucks, 20-foot dump trucks.
Yeah, so what
I just was.
Yeah.
They added up the square footage of the material.
So a lot of the, when we were out there, a lot of the equipment you're talking about right now is actually on site. A lot of the smaller equipment is actually on the trailers themselves.
Right.
So you're gonna have 2 dump trucks, you have the trailers, and most all the smaller stuff is on top of that. So the reason that you guys had asked for this was exactly for that reason. Am I parking 15 dump trucks here or what? No, the answer was you dump truck with trailers because they're hauling it out, going to a job site and bringing it back. And actually, when we were out there, that's exactly what we did witness. So the purpose of this was so you wouldn't see 18 dump trucks. You guys were very clear to say, this is what we're approving in terms of what you guys are using this property for. And that's what you have expressed to us. And what they expressed to you, you guys approved and we put on this plan, really just for that reason. So there was no ambiguity about how many or how less or whatever else. And it was to say exactly what your point was. There aren't going to be 15 dump trucks out there. If there are, it doesn't meet the requirement of the site plan approval. And John was really clear about that as well when we were out there, was this site plan approval with these notes are the conditions.
Right, and what I'm reading when I look at this, I see there's 3 large trucks, the Peterbilt, the Kenworth, the Sterling, all with trailers attached to them. But there's more trailers than trucks. Unless we're talking, and even then to fit them all on that site.
I think the reality is that, and the reason why they had expressed at the last meeting, and John just confirmed, they have another facility as well for some of the other equipment. at any one time, if they have any one of these pieces here, if they can fit all these on here in the limited area that they had, it's Tetris. If they can't, they have other places to go, but if we didn't want to get into the Kenworth is here today and he's not allowed to be there tomorrow. And that was what you guys had asked for. That's what the purpose of that is. So, you know, if they can't park within the area that's designated, they can't park there. And that's what that purpose of that note is for.
Staff recommendations are to approve the amended site plan. Do I have a motion to do that? I'll make a motion to approve it. If I can get a second.
I'll second
I would too.
Okay. Second by
Which one
Bob.
did for Bob then?
it. I'll second it with the comment that the shed needs to be, building permit needs to be filed for and inspected by you.
Absolutely, yeah.
Is there power running to it?
No, not that I'm aware of. They had not, there was no consent to have power to that.
I'm just curious because when I hear the public comment being like, it's blaring a boombox that makes.
Well, I don't live there, so I can't really tell you, so I apologize. But I do know that the shed that they have on their site, which John is aware of as well, you guys are all aware of, they had lights in there. Whether they're running a boombox, I couldn't tell you.
For a site plan approval, you're approving the building there, if they have electricity or not.
Building permit issue.
Right, that ties to you.
That's
That's to me, I'd have to get a permit for the electricity one. They did pull a permit to put electricity in the other one, if that's what they existed.
Yeah.
Okay, roll call.
That I.
Capiello,
That's here,
Mr. Wallace.
Thank you.
Yeah.
If you want one copy.
They have not made your job easy, so I give you a lot of credit
Yes.
for,
We appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Hey, we'll be back. Don't worry.
All right, and finally, we have. Application 239-2-23 Events. Owners, 1962 Real Estate LLC, which is the, this is request for the applicant to provide site plans review temporary use with waivers for summer concert series with temporary bandstand approximately 20 by 15 feet. The event will be on Thursdays from 6 to 8 p.m. located at 625 Franklin Pierce Highway, 239 lot 2 on a 7.17 acre lot using 2 acres for event. Parking the Christmas Dove in the town center zoning district.
I would like to point out that if Snoop Dogg, who is on here, makes a approval to perform a concert, I'll make the motion to accept and approve all right now and be done with it. Free show, community show.
That's right.
I think we should continue it to August.
I do want backstage, I do request backstage passes.
So the groupies on that small trailer running down these.
So the applicant is online, to present the date.
Connor, we're all not at home, so let's keep this brief.
Yeah, deal. Hey, I'm impressed by you all. 9 o'clock with the amount that you've gone through. That's pretty fantastic. So Connor McIver, Town Administrator. I'm joined here virtually with Sarah Bailey, the Assistant Recreation Director. As you all remember, we came just at your last meeting for a conceptual review of this plan. Not much has changed since we saw you. We have an updated graphic, which I have on the screen here. The biggest thing that we added was the existing lighting locations and also the event times and applicable sunset times for the proposed event dates. I will also note the application narrative indicates that the parking will be in the Christmas Dove parking lot. It's important to note that that is on the same lot. So Holy Rosary Credit Union owns the parking lot where patrons park for the Christmas Dove. So everything that we're proposing is on the same lot. you can see that the plan would be to have a band location and food truck locations. We've positioned that in the most favorable direction for the sunset, so folks can be in the shade but not be staring into the sunset, etc. We do plan to have power from the utility lines out front through temporary service, and we are both happy to answer any questions.
The only question I have is I'm assuming, with these big name venues coming in, do we have a concern of overflow parking? Because I have no doubt you will probably fill up that lot and it will end up across the street in other areas.
Yeah, I think the plan for parking, similar to other events that happen down in that area, would be to make sure that we're prepared to have parking across the street, whether it's at the post office area and in the parking that exists over there. There's also the municipal parking lot, which is on the other side of the street, but can hold, a dozen or more cars as well. And so it'll be a coordinated effort with our public safety professionals to make sure that we're all prepared to handle the traffic that might exist, foot traffic that is crossing Route 9 for the event.
Will these have a police officer present for traffic control and things of that sort, pedestrian control?
Yeah, that's what I was talking about. Those details aren't worked out specifically, but just as we do with all the community events down in that area, plan to work with the police department, fire department, be prepared.
I love the police's comment. The police department is supportive of anything the rec wants or needs.
It just shows the cooperation and collaboration we have in our town departments.
More questions?
Seems like a worthy endeavor.
Yes, this waiver does pertain to making sure the application is complete. So the applicant has proposed a waiver.
Requested waiver, the applicant requested waivers to the site plan review regulations. The requirement for site plan specifications for section 3.1 of the site plan review regulation. Grant the waiver because of unnecessary hardships of the applicant, granting the waiver would not be contrary to the spirit and intent of the regulations.
Make a motion to approve the waiver for section 3.1 of site plan review and regulations.
I second it.
Roll call.
Nap aye.
Gabriella, I.
Jesse, you're out. Just one.
And Mr. Chair, I will note at the most recent select board meeting, the select board actually made a blanket decision to authorize the waiver of fees for all town applications to land use boards. And so that will be something that we'll keep on file, not just for this application, but for all future applications, that the select board, in their authority of setting the fees for the town, have authorized the waiver of fees for municipal projects before the planning board.
Sounds good.
It just goes like this. Take it out of this pocket and move it to
Is there a
the.
motion to accept this application?
I'll make the motion to accept the application as complete.
I'll second.
Roll
Nap
call.
aye.
Gabriella, I.
Jesse, you're out.
Just one.
Public comment?
Open public.
Anybody online? See anybody?
New
here?
job, but.
Holy his breath.
Want a commitment that he's performing.
Calling in from the Caribbean anyway, sitting on the beach, right? Yeah.
Hey, he's got.
Motion to approve the application motion.
We did.
What's the crap? What's it called? Yeah.
Okay. The notice of decision for case file 239-2-TC-23-SR events. Owners 1962 Real Estate LLC. Request by applicant for a minor site plan review for temporary use with waivers for summer concert series with a temporary bandstand approximately 20 feet by 15 feet. The events would be on Thursdays from 6 to 8 p.m. located at 625 Franklin Pierce Highway, map 239, lot 2, on a 7.17 acres. lot using 2 acres for event and parking at Christmas Dove in the town center zoning district. The Barrington Planning Board at its June 6th, 2023 meeting approved the application referenced for a minor site plan review for temporary use of waiver for summer concert series. The temporary band stand approximately 20 by 16 feet, events on Thursdays from 6 to 8 p.m. Was reviewed in accordance with the town of Barrington site plan review regulations for non-residential uses and multifamily dwelling units, amended May 17, 2022, and the Barrington zoning ordinance amended March 28, 2023. The application has met all town ordinances and regulations of the town of Barrington. And at the June 6th meeting, the planning board approved the waiver for the requirement for site plan specifications for section 3.1 of the site plan review regulations.
Okay, we have to vote for the NOD. Do I have a motion?
Motion to approve the notice of decision as read.
I'll second it.
Roll call.
Napa.
Happy LOI.
Just a line.
Awesome. Thank you. Hope to see you all there.
Thank you, Connor.
That's my golf mate, sorry.
It's your ball.
Hi, everybody. This is Sarah, Assistant Rec Director. I just wanted to say thank you very much. We're very excited about this opportunity.
You're welcome and good luck.
Thanks, Sarah.
Thank you.
It's book club night for the ladies, also known as wine night, so I'm on kid duty.
Anybody have other business? Hearing
No.
none. Motion adjourned.
Second.
Number 10, second. Okay.
Aye.
Hi.
Just a line.
You can't walk right past
6 minutes
it.
after when we wanted to be.
That was good.
Good job, team.
Yeah, that was a lot.
I never.
Wait.